Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Metro Board activities of January 26, 2023. To start off, I'd like to ask our Chief Safety Officer, Jurisdictional, to provide us with a safety contact. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to Metro headquarters. In the event of an alarm activation, we'll exit this conference room via the glass doors and proceed into the lobby where we'll await further instructions from the security team. If we are instructed to exit the building, I will lead the group to our designated assembly point at the adjacent Hancock Park, and the security team will coordinate with first responders. There's an AED at the entry desk, and in the event of an emergency, I'll retrieve the AED and render aid while the security team contacts responders. Lastly, restrooms are located in the vestibule area adjacent to this conference room. WMATA is committed to ensuring all stations, buses, and rail cars are accessible. Each rail station has an elevator, an accessible fare vending machine with lower panels, and extra-wide accessible fare gates for customers utilizing mobility devices. Additionally, all WMATA buses are accessible with 2 wheelchair securement areas on each bus, and every Metro bus operator is trained to operate those securement devices. Safety tips and more information can be found in the Customer Guide to Metro Bus and Metro Rail, which is available at wmata.com as a PDF or in audio format. This concludes our safety contact.
Thank you, Ms. Emposado. Since this is our first public meeting of the day, I'll ask our Board Corporate Secretary
to call the roll. And more information can be found in the Customer Guide to Metro Bus and Metro Rail, which is available at wmata.com as a PDF or in audio format.
Director Letourneau?
Present.
Director Lowe?
Present.
Director Drummer?
Present.
Director Martin Proctor?
Good morning.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the agenda. First, approval of the agenda. If there are no objections, we'll consider the agenda approved as presented. Does anyone have any objections from a committee member? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Now on to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of our January 12th, 2023 meeting before us for approval. Are there any objections or comments to the minutes as presented? Hearing and seeing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. We have one item on our agenda this morning to accept a report from the Inspector General to authorize its posting on the IG website. Under the board's bylaws, the Executive Committee is responsible for reviewing and accepting the reports from the Inspector General. The committee has reviewed the following report: review of WMATA's non-revenue vehicle program. Before we take a vote, I'll ask our IG, Mr. Fedlis, to provide the committee with highlights from this report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the Board of Directors. As you stated, I'm pleased to present our report on non-revenue vehicles. OIG conducted an evaluation. The objective of our evaluation was to determine whether WMATA's non-revenue vehicles are managed and used appropriately in compliance with applicable policies and procedures. OIG identified weaknesses in the program's organizational structure, fleet management's ability to assess vehicle utilization and needs accurately, and an authority-wide lack of compliance with substantive areas of WMATA's non-revenue vehicle policy. In addition, we found weaknesses in properly documenting take-home vehicle authorization, accurately reporting vehicle usage, or submitting the required annual vehicle needs assessment. OIG made 13 recommendations to improve the process and cost effectiveness of the program. Management agreed with the recommendations and took or is planning to take necessary corrective actions. Planned actions by management include reducing the fleet by 20% or approximately 300 vehicles, updating applicable policies, and implementing a computer-based training. I'd like to thank WMATA management for cooperation during this evaluation. If there are any questions, I'd gladly answer them.
Thank you, Mr. IG. Any questions for the IG? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. Acceptance of this report constitutes the board's authorization to post it on the Inspector General's website, provided that the IG has conferred with the General Counsel and provided that any private or confidential information has been removed and or redacted in accordance with applicable law and WMATA policy. I'd like to move approval of this item. Is there a second from a committee member?
Second.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Babers. Now I'll ask Ms. Ellison to call the vote.
Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair Babers?
Aye.
Mr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Klein?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. The report has been accepted and the Inspector General has been authorized to post it online. This completes our business for today's meeting. We'll stand adjourned briefly. We'll proceed to the Board of Directors meeting. Okay. Good morning again, everyone. Paul Smedberg, Chair of the WMATA Board. Thank you for being here today for our meeting. Since we just called the roll at our previous meeting, we'll move right to our next item, which is the approval of the agenda. If there are no objections, I'd like to consider the agenda approved as presented with one addition. I'd like to add RAC member reappointments to our report. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Now we have 5 sets of minutes for approval. The board meetings from December 8th, 2022 and January 12th, 23, and executive sessions from December 8th, 22, January 12th, 23, and January 15th. I'd like to consider these minutes approved as presented. Does anyone have any comments or objections to any of those sets of minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as presented. Thank you. Next, we'll move to our employee spotlight. Today, we are recognizing a team of MTPD and Metrobus colleagues who came together to bring holiday cheer to children in our service area. We are also recognizing 3 frontline workers who kept our customers and community members safe during 3 separate incidences. I'm pleased that our employees can join us here today at the board meeting. So would you please stand when I recognize you? I'd like to note that we'll do photos at the end once we've concluded recognizing each group. First, train operator Victoria Stanley. Victoria, good morning. Why don't you come on up? Really put you in the spotlight here. Perfect. Yeah. On December 7th, Ms. Stanley was operating a red line train full of customers. As her train arrived at Metro Station, she saw a commotion on the platform and heard gunshots. An incident was unfolding on the platform as 2 men struggled and fell between the park wall. Instead of opening the train doors, operator Stanley kept them closed to protect the customers on her train and quickly began moving the train full of customers out of harm's way toward the next station. My description of this cannot convey how amazing Ms. Stanley's quick thinking was in this moment, and I think a lot of people agree. Let me also share what our customers posted on Twitter. One wrote, "I was on the train. Everyone in our car was thankful the operator got us out of there. Please pass along our thanks." Another wrote, "I was on the front car of Glenmont 1112. It was terrifying. The train operator's keen reactions were amazing. She deserves commendation and has my deepest appreciation that I was able to get home safely to my family last night." Another wrote, "I was on her train and I thanked her when I got off. She was so humble. Her quick actions avoided further injury and trauma." And there were many, many more. Ms. Stanley, we join our customers in thanking you in the most sincere way. You did an amazing, amazing job. Thank you so much. Okay. Next, we'll call on bus operator Katrina Hall. Ms. Hall, come on up. Oh, Kavina. Kavina. I'm sorry, Kavina. I'm slightly dyslexic, and it always kicks in. Sorry. One of my issues. Earlier this month, on January 11th, Ms. Hall was operating the 54 bus route around 4 p.m. While stopped at 14th Street Northwest near Fort Stevens Drive, several people boarded her bus and began to assault a customer. The fight spilled onto the sidewalk where one man banished a gun and fired shots, injuring 2 young customers, ages 6 and 9, who were returning home from school, and an adult customer. The children were able to get back on the bus, and Ms. Hall drove them and our other customers to a safe location further down the street. Emergency personnel transported the victims to a local hospital for treatment. Thank you, Operator Hall, for your quick thinking that not only saved the lives of those innocent children, but also protected the other customers aboard your bus. We recognize you today for being a true hero, and again, our sincere thanks. Our next hero to be recognized today is bus operator Raynell Red. Good morning. Last week on Thursday, January 19th, Ms. Red was driving her bus along 63rd and Clay Streets Northeast at 7:30 a.m. To her surprise, she noticed a toddler wearing only a shirt, jeans, and shoes in the cold weather, walking in the middle of the road. She reported the incident to the Bus Operations Control Center and then safely pulled over her bus, secured it, and retrieved the child from the roadway. MTPD and MPD responded to the scene and were able to reunite the child with the parent. The 3-year-old boy was left at his house after finding an unlocked door. We thank Operator Reed for not only discovering the missing child, but also for rescuing him from extreme danger. We thank you for your service to the community and to Metro as well. And finally, we recognize, we'll stand, sorry. Finally, we recognize 4 employees who spearheaded the MTPD's Winter Wonderland Community Bus during the holiday season and brought joy to so many children and families in the communities we serve. Shonda Lewis, could you please stand? Director of Engagement and Continuous Improvement for the MTPD. Latanya Puteau, Principal Strategic Program Manager. Sergeant Charles Page of MTPD's Youth Services Division, and Jewel Bell, Acting Vice President of Bus Transportation. No, stay there, you're not done yet. You'll get another round. The holiday wrap Metro bus, decorated as a winter wonderland, complete with snow blankets, holiday lights, and a colleague dressed as Santa and another as the Grinch, was a huge hit at every stop you made in the region. The toys and treats that were donated by Metro employees and shared with the children brought huge smiles to their faces. Your efforts went above and beyond in building positive community relationships, and we thank each of you for your leadership and coordination of this project. The board also extends its thanks and appreciation to all the employees who participated in and made donations toward the MTPD Winter Wonderland Community Bus. So thank you so, so much. What a great idea. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, I know as we bring them up for the pictures, I just wanted to add in on behalf of the entire staff, this represents the best of us, all the people that you just called in and recognized today. And it's a privilege to work here with 12,000 people that are not just committed to just safe, reliable, frequent service. That's kind of what we talk about every day, but the community action that is happening here. People that live here, work here, care about the people that are using our system every day. So a lot of you I've talked to individually, I've made phone calls when you had an incident, and I just thank you so much of how dedicated you are to your community and to this organization, and just keep up the good work. You represent seriously the best of all of us, so thank you.
So stay right there. Stay right there. We're going to get some group photos. We'll bring everyone else up, but we'll do them in the groups. So.
Ready, y'all eyes here. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, now we'll move on to our public comment and reports by our advisory boards. First, we'll hear from customers and stakeholders. I'll ask staff to play one comment submitted, and then we'll move to in-person comments if there are any.
My name is Paladin Iqbal, DQDAH, 16th Street Heights, Northwest, Washington, D.C. The deadline for submitting my testimony this morning is 2 hours before General Manager Randy Clark will dedicate the agency's first all-electric bus facility at Northern Bus Garage on 14th Street. But the 11 o'clock ribbon-cutting ceremony that denies me the benefit of knowing whether or not the agency will have a full complement of 150 battery-powered buses by the scheduled 2027 reopening is still up in the air. This issue raises 3 concerns. 1, if Metro reintroduces diesel buses at Northern, we'll be going backwards, exposed to noise, toxic pollution, and the continuing effects of global warming emissions. 2, the colossal waste in spending $8 to $12 million on a new diesel infrastructure scheme only to have it become a stranded asset 3 years later is not just a waste of money, but fiscally irresponsible. And 3, according to its own procurement schedule from the Metro Bus Fleet Plan, the transit agency will have at most 113 electric buses in its fleet when it reopens 5 years from now. At the Armada's upcoming winter meeting for the Northern Bus Garage this Thursday, January 26th, residents and businesses alike remain concerned and skeptical that the agency is not being very transparent or candid with us as neighbors in the 16th Street Heights community. It's bad enough we're not getting a mixed-use residential retail component just approved by the zoning commission for Ward 3's Western Garage, but to add insult to injury, Ramada's draft for Northern still show diesel infrastructure on the plains. Someone needs to tell them they can't have it both ways. Either the garage reopens as an all-electric garage or don't reopen at all.
Okay. Yep, thank you. Next, we have one in-person commenter, Ms. Rush. Denise, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Denise Rush, and I'm Vice Chair of the AAC Committee, Vice Chair of the Metro Access Subcommittee, and Vice President for the Federation for the Blind of Maryland, Sligo Creek Chapter. Mr. Clark, when you speak, I don't know it's you. You thank the people who helped everyone and with their quickness, but for a blind person, you need to announce who you are, because we're not that close enough yet that I know your voice. we have a relationship, but not that close. Thank you.
Hey, wait a minute.
Yes, ma'am, I will work. This is Randy. I will work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My main point today is a flat rate that is not so confusing, so that we can budget. People who are on a fixed income and they are disabled, we need to know, just like we need to know if you're going to your job every day, it costs X amount of dollars. We need to be able to budget. And we really, please, get a flat rate that is not so confusing. One way it's $6.50, another way it's $5.20, some of it's $4. But the one at night, the $4 is easy. We know after 9 o'clock and on the weekends, it's $4. Also, I participated in watching testing out the new fare gates. I didn't know people were just hopping across there like like nothing. They just jumping like grasshoppers over and not paying. Oh my God. I was out there for 2 hours and they were just hopping, hopping, hopping. And it's not children, it's adults, women, grown people just hopping over the gate. The new gate is higher and I hope that they can't get over there as easy as the one we had, because their jumping is $40 million, and that's affecting the Metro Access fares, because no, they didn't increase from 650, but they just keep in the middle getting higher and higher. Maybe you're only going to pay $4, but now you might be paying $4.50. $4.50 goes up to $5, and pretty soon everybody's going to be at $6.50, and that is just too much for people on fixed incomes. So I hope that the new gate, I can't hop over any of it, but they were grasshoppering. Also, I experienced, and I want to thank the ADA committee or the people who were out there. My ride came and he says, I'm not picking you up. I'm not taking you because you're in a wheelchair. And I said, my wheelchair folds, I can get in. No, they weren't going to do that. He was not going to take me. And if WMATA had not been out there, Miss Lopez and Anu, he would have left me. He was not going to take me. And this is what handicapped persons are experiencing with wheelchairs. They don't want to take us. But Miss Lopez, she went in 60 minutes to another person. I was like, whoa, whoa, you're going to take her. You are going to take her. You work for us. And I want to thank them. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. I want to thank everyone who submitted comments today, and of course, Denise being here in person. Now we'll hear from our Accessibility Advisory Committee. Mr. Sheehan. Good morning, Pat. How are you?
Are we on?
Yep, you're
Yes,
on.
good,
Yep.
thank you. Good to be here once again. Thank you very much for letting me speak. Congratulations to the first group of people, the employees who did such a spectacular job in performing their duties and going above and beyond what was expected for WMATA. It is very humbling to be in the same room with them, and giving my report seems so much less important than the work that they have been doing. So congratulations to them. We appreciate all of their work. Also, congratulations to the individuals who are going to be as alternate board members accepted today. The AAC recognizes that we have two capable women who will be well qualified and very hardworking. The AAC looks forward to working with them. We've noted that there are a lot of capable, hardworking women on this board, so I think we're going to have some great things in the future. Thank you very much for that. As far as what we've been working with on the board, on the bus side, as Denise just said, we worked at Fort Totten, a bunch of us, talking about looking at the fare card gates. I was not aware that they had people jumping, and demonstrating to us in front of WMATA staff that they could jump over these other gates. I think the information that we were able to provide WMATA, the 6 or 8 people that were there, will be very valuable. So I think that that has been a good study. In 2023, for the next calendar year, for the next year or so, we're going to be doing a bus stop study with the jurisdictions to ensure that the bus stops in the jurisdictions are going to be accessible. We want to see which bus stops need work. We're hoping that some of the infrastructure money that we are receiving in the area can be used to update the bus stops. We plan to also to take photographs, to talk to the jurisdictions, and to see what we can do to bring attention to some of the areas, particularly like Prince George's County, that really we think we need work. So we will be putting a series of questions together to help track progress that's being made. And so if the board has any thoughts as to what sorts of questions they would like to include, we'd be happy to include those, and we'll share our results, of course, with you. We've gotten reports from the 8,000 series cars. We are in regular contact with the project manager. We've seen that a lot of the accessibility issues on those cars have been accepted and moved forward. We've also working with the WayMaps project with the disability community. We received a report through disability communities, and we expect to be involved in looking at the rollout for the WayMaps internal GPS system in April. And I think that with Denise's group, my group, within Maryland, DC, and Virginia, we will be looking at the system, running it through its paces, working through with the AAC to ensure that that system is going to be working properly. And lastly, the recommendations from the Better Bus Network, we will be moving those forward to our Bus and Rail subcommittee, and we will be working with those recommendations, taking a look at them and commenting on those. And like Denise, I'd like to jump to Metro Access and to the budget discussion. We have really pushed for a fixed fare over the last couple of years. We think that the fixed fare of $4, which we have at night and on the weekends, is an excellent idea. As Denise said, it is very confusing for individuals who take a trip which might cost $3.50, and then the next day that trip is going to cost $4.75. We're looking for fare simplification. We are looking for equity. We are looking to make sure that the fare structure is easy to understand. Back in 2015, we looked at the combination of bus and rail trips that WMATA had. It was over 240,000. And that was before the Silver Line came on board. So we're probably up to 300,000 combinations of bus and rail activities. And we know that we pick the fastest bus and rail to calculate Metro Access fares. That's what makes it so confusing. We understand that the fares are based on the fastest, twice the fastest fixed fare, and we understand, that authority comes from DOT, I believe FTA. It just doesn't seem right that individuals who take Metro Access should be paying double the fare. It kind of reminds me of a line from Jurassic Park, which says, just because we can doesn't mean we should. What I'd like to see us do is to have a impact study done, and that would be my ask of the board, to look at the fares that we have out there. Why can't we have a flat fare? What would that do to the overall budget? Probably wouldn't affect it much. A lot of the arguments that both Denise, myself, and the others from the AAC have raised have been more emotional arguments. What I'd like to do is have a data-driven argument as to, can we have a fixed fare? What would the impact be on the budget? And can we move forward with it? So thank you very much for allowing me to present this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions for the AAC? Seeing none? Thank you, Patrick. I always
Okay.
appreciate your comments and the committee's work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Mayor, the Writers Advisory Council Chair. Morning, Brian.
Chairman Smedberg, fellow members of the board, General Manager Clark, thank you so much for having me this morning and being able to present to you our January 2023 Writers Advisory Council report. First of all, I'd just like to echo what Pat said about the amazing accomplishments of those individuals that were recognized earlier in this meeting, whether that's service and community engagement or just safety for the entire program. I think it's no wonder that the strategic plan, Your Metro, the Way Forward, includes a large emphasis on the human resources of our system and the importance of the individuals that get us from point A to point B in a safe and efficient manner. So thank you all for those that were here earlier. At our January meeting, Tom Webster, who I just saw, Metro's Executive Vice President for Planning and Performance, came to us and reviewed the General Manager's proposed FY24 budget with the Council. It was largely informational in nature, and we're pleased that several of the concepts reviewed by you all in the fall, recommended by the RAC as well in the fall, ended up being included in the actual proposed budget, which includes the elimination of the peak versus off-peak fare differential, and a program for low-income riders. And we had a little bit of a discussion about some of the potential service changes on the green, yellow, and orange lines. And as the RAC kind of develops a better understanding about what that will mean and the impacts it will have on our riders and our customers, then we'll be able to kind of provide more concrete feedback in that particular manner. As the board votes today to take the FY24 budget proposal out to the public, RAC members are committed and ready to participate as active listeners in this year's outreach. So that not only includes our personal networks, but that also includes Metro-sponsored public hearings and outreach events that we anticipate attending and representing the RAC in that capacity. And we're looking forward to returning to the board later on in the spring with recommendations based off of what you all have heard and what we heard. And then lastly, the recruitment and reappointments of RAC members. So on your agenda today is the reappointment of 3 members of the RAC. We appreciate your consideration in that regard. After those reappointments, the RAC will still have 3 remaining vacancies that we're working with our board liaison, Dr. Helfer, to help fill. So I'd encourage anyone in the public that is interested to fill out an application online, as well as if any of the board members have any recommendations for individuals that you think would like to kind of be active and engaged in what's happening with the Metro system, then encourage them to apply as well. So thank you, and I'm available for any questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for the RAC? Seeing none? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for all your work. Next, we'll move on to the report by the chair. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome 2 new alternate board members, April Rye, representing the federal government, and Spring Worth, the District of Columbia. I'll start with Ms. Rye, who is joining us via Teams. I'm going to go ahead and read April's bio while we're pulling up the Teams. April is currently the president and CEO of the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, or COMTO. In this role, she works to build upon COMTO's 50-year history of ensuring equitable opportunities and maximum participation for minority individuals, veterans, people with disabilities and minorities, women, and disadvantaged business enterprises. Previously, April served as Deputy Executive Director for the Women's Transportation Seminar International, or WTS. In that role, April focused on the management of operations, including serving as Chief of Staff, lead on project planning and execution, ensuring deliverability on time and within budget. Prior to joining WTS, April served as the CEO for the National Organization for Youth Safety, a coalition of over 100 organizations and agencies dedicated to youth health and safety education. She also served as manager and affairs analyst in the Office of the Dean at the University of Maryland School of Nursing, directing government affairs and communications. Welcome, April.
Thank you so much.
Okay. If you would raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I state your name.
I, April Rye,
Do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
as alternate director of the board
as alternate director of the board
of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority
of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations and welcome. Would you like to
Thank
say
you very much.
any few words if you'd like to say anything?
I just want to say thank you to Secretary Buttigieg for this appointment and consideration. It is an extreme honor. Serving in this way really does align with my personal and professional values, so I look forward to serving in whatever way would be helpful. And I just thank you all for the opportunity and look forward to working with you.
Well, great. We look forward to working with you as well. So thank you. Thank you for being here with us this morning. Next, we'd like to recognize Spring Worth. Spring, if you'd step forward. Spring currently serves as the WMATA Budget and Policy Program Manager at the District Department of Transportation. Since joining DOT in 2013, Spring has led several large transit planning projects, including the 16th Street Northwest Bus Lanes Project, the 8th Street Northwest Bus Priority Project, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue Southeast Bus Priority Project. In 2022, Spring accepted the role of chair of the Metropolitan Council of Governments Public Transportation Committee. She also serves as the vice chair of the American Public Transportation Association's Bus Rapid Transit Committee and secretary of the APTA BRT Standards Committee. She is a 2018 APTA Emerging Leaders Program graduate. She also has completed the District of Columbia's Capital City Fellows Program and the National Urban Fellows Program. Welcome, Spring.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Turn around. So if you'd raise your right hand. I, repeat your name,
I, Spring Worth,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the District of Columbia,
and the Constitution and laws of the District of Columbia,
from which I was appointed
from which I was appointed
as an alternate director of the board
as an alternate director of the board
of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority,
of the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
from which I am about to enter.
from which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you'd like to say a few words.
I'm really excited about the opportunity to serve. I want to first thank Lucinda and Tracy for the nomination. thank you very much, and for the DC Council for the appointment. And I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you both to April and Spring for being able to join us here today, and we obviously look forward to working with both of you. I will also note that yesterday I was able to swear in our newest principal member from Maryland, the new Transportation Secretary, Paul Wiedefeld. Since we were attending an event here at the Metro headquarters, and given the nature of Mr. Wiedefeld's new schedule, I took the opportunity to swear him in yesterday. So Paul will be joining us in the future. I'd also like to thank former Maryland Secretary of Transportation, Jim Ports, for his contributions to the Metro Board, and hopefully we can recognize him for his service in the near future, and we look forward to being able to do that, and thank Jim personally. Our next order of business is to act on reappointments for 3 members of our Writers Advisory Council. Mihaela Fernando, representing the state of Maryland, Brian Mayer, representing the Commonwealth of Virginia, and Michael Leibowitz serves as an at-large member. Ms. Fernando and Mr. Leibowitz were appointed to the board in May and June of 2022, respectively, to complete other members' expiring terms and wish to be reappointed to a full 2-year term. Ms. Fernando currently serves as the RAC's Maryland Vice Chair, and Mr. Leibowitz serves as the RAC's Annual Report Committee, which is working to better document and analyze the RAC's outreach activities and to help RAC better fulfill its role in representing writers. Mr. Mayer currently serves as the RAC's chair, as we know, and seeks reappointment to a second 2-year term. I'd like to move approval of these 3 appointments. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Lowe. Any discussion? Ms. Ellison, please administer the vote.
Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair Babers? Aye. Mr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Klein? Aye. Mr. Letourneau?
Aye.
Dr. Lowe? Aye. Mr. Drummer?
Aye.
Ms. Martin Proctor?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you and welcome. Thank you and congratulations, Brian. And finally, on behalf of the board, I'd like to recognize 2 retiring employees. First, Executive Vice President for External Affairs, Barbara Richardson. Barbara, well, actually, you can't stand, can you? Well, you can briefly. Do you want to? Well, wait. Do you want to wait until we take pictures? Or yeah, okay. Barbara and her kneecap had a little incident. I know how how painful that can be. So after 13 years with Metro, Ms. Richardson is retiring. This is her last board meeting. Since 2010, Barbara has led the communications, marketing, and outreach functions for major projects and initiatives, as well as built and maintains stakeholder relationships with customers, employees, elected officials, the business community, and civic groups. She has also led the agency's strategic and business planning processes, as well as overseeing the day-to-day management of the GM's office. In addition, she has served as Chief of Staff and Management's liaison to the Board of Directors, and led the executive team in implementing many agency-wide initiatives such as Metro Forward, employee engagement programs, the Customer Accountability Report, or CARE, and the redesign of Metro's MAP and SafeTrack. She also led efforts to build and maintain relationships with funding jurisdictions, federal agencies, regional businesses, as well as growth and grew support for sustainable funding. Barbara, thank you for your dedication and commitment during your 13-year tenure, especially for your work with the board office. And as we were chatting yesterday, you have really, in I think your own words, you've been in the front lines of a lot of WMATA history. It has not been a dull period of time here at WMATA, to say the least. And I know a lot of people really do appreciate the work, and particularly the outreach that you do and have done, throughout all those years. So, anyone, or Randy, would you like to?
Yeah, I just on behalf of the whole staff, Barbara, obviously, A, we wish you well on your current ailment, but B, thank you for all of your dedication to Metro. Appreciate, as I came on board, all the help you gave me personally. I think that the number one thing I will say about Barbara that I think everyone would agree is Barbara's a pro. And I think that demonstrates, Barbara's retiring here like in a couple of days, and she was yesterday, hey, we got to be prepared for the board meeting, what notes, and that's who Barbara is. She is a professional all the way through, and I just appreciate her class act and professional and who she is as a person, and we wish her well. And I have a feeling we'll never see the last of Barbara. She loves these topics. She knows everyone in the region, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again. But congratulations on your great tenure here at Metro.
Yeah, and Randy, I think, you summed it up nicely. I mean, Barbara is a pro, and at times, there's been appropriate pushback, and, Barbara, though, will call it out, and so it's good. And that's what your job is, and you did it well. So next, so stay there, don't leave. Next, we'll recognize Larissa Alexander. Larissa, why don't you come on up? Yeah. With over 17 years of service to Metro, Larissa has served every general manager since John Cato. In her role, Larissa made the executive office run smoothly and maintained the general manager's the connection to the front line. Larissa has also has been dedicated to serving Metro through her personal commitment to various task forces and industry groups. Thank you both for your tremendous service, Larissa. We didn't actually have much interaction. You were working behind the scenes, working with the C-suite there and the general manager, but I know a lot of people did very much appreciate the work you did on their behalf. So, thank you.
Yeah, and Chair, I'll just add in, Larissa, on behalf of the whole staff, Larissa's kind of the glue that keeps the 8th floor together. So we'll be struggling here for a little bit, but we really wish her well. I hope I could say I do 17 years at Metro. So you've seen some times, and you've served a lot of people really well, and you served the organization well. Especially the frontline connection, that I can't thank you enough. When I got here, you have the pulse of the workforce, the trust of the workforce, and helped me navigate. Quite frankly, I still am not sure how to get around sometimes. And Larissa's like, hey, we're going to this building, and here's how we get to that building, and this is that person, and invaluable. So, but we really wish you well on the next stage of your career in life, and thank you again for all of your amazing service.
Both of you stay.
We got the blink. Oh, right there.
Yeah, just save the cakes. Save the cakes.
Call the safety commission. Okay.
Now our cards are going to be taken out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Those are good looking.
All right, well, that concludes my report, and thank you for that. That was a lot to get through, but anyway. So next, we'll turn the floor over to our General Manager, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Hard act to follow today. We're doing a lot of incredible recognitions and cake. So I will keep my comments as tight as possible because I know you all are looking for a piece of cake. We'll go to the first slide if we can. I want to give an update on our strategic transformation plan and budget feedback. I know we'll be having a budget item here in just a moment, but this is really about the public part. We really are encouraging public comment. I think we've done a lot of transparency around both of these documents since as early as August. We really want to get as many people to have feedback because that means it's more inclusive, and ultimately we're here to serve the region and that community and our customers. So please, if you have an opportunity, public at large, go on to our Metro site. We also have a public hearing coming up, and on the budget specifically, we have 4, one virtual and one in person in all 3 jurisdictions, and look forward for your input as we move forward. The next slide is about community engagement kind of more holistically, and it's one of the things I know when I had the opportunity to talk to this board about this role, I really believe in community engagement in an authentic way, that we are hearing from people that use our service or want more service and don't use our service, how we interact with the community and how we be the best at that. And we recognized a few members of our Transit Police Department and bus operations earlier regarding the holiday bus, but the team is also out there all the time doing toy drives, youth outreach, which we've been doing at our stations pretty extensively lately, and those types of activities. Really trying, especially on the youth front, to meet youth where they are early and get them used to our system, and also kind of the rules of the road in the system and how to get assistance if they need it. The other thing I'm really proud of this team, and I really wanted to be at the food bank to do the work with the team. We obviously had a press conference right at that time of the event. But the work that this team did in honoring Dr. King's legacy of service by raising over 32,000 meals for our community was a great activity for Metro to be involved in. And I really like how the team put together the bus wrap for Dr. King, really highlighting being positive and working together as a community. We are going to lean into using our assets a little bit more on the public art and historical reference points and things of that nature. We are part of this community, and we are going to actively show that we are there to do that. The next slide should be to me, one of the great examples of community is what happened yesterday at our Northern Bus Garage groundbreaking. So obviously, it's kind of like the Silver Line. I kind of just show up for the groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings, so all the hard work Metro's done for years. But this was a deep conversation between the neighborhood and Metro on how to get to yesterday to be a reality. And if you look at it, we are maintaining a gorgeous historic facade that is very important to that community. It's a landmark. We are trying to integrate retail into our space to activate that corridor. And I know there's been back and forth for years regarding zero emission. So we came out crystal clear. That facility is a zero emission bus division. We are not building fossil fuel infrastructure to support fossil fuel vehicles at that facility. It is a zero emission facility. And that clearly went over very well in the neighborhood and the community. They want that commitment. We gave that commitment. I want to thank our board members. Board Member Lowe had a great speech, and we appreciate you being there. And then you joined me for the tour, which she was, I'll just say, very excited to go under the hood. And Board Member Babers was there, as well as the mayor was there, ANC representatives, Councilmember Lewis George was there. We had FTA Administrator Nuria Fernandez. It was a great turnout to celebrate us not only becoming greener, but more equitable and working with the community the right way. We also had a lot of our bus operators, including 3 operators who have operated buses out of Northern for over 30 years that were retirees, and we got to recognize them as well. So overall, great event, and I'll thank again Sam Raposa for the team. Putting up a tent in January was one of the best decisions made, and it turned out to be great. So just really good job for the team, and look forward to, we have Bladensburg that will be coming not too distant future, and then we have to have some serious conversations about Western as well, how to advance that project in the community. The next and last I want to talk about is some really good news, and it's about how we're going to increase train frequency coming up. So as you'll see right now, and for the sake of clarity, we put blue, blue plus, and orange together. So right now we are running 15-minute headways frequency on those lines. Effective February 7th, we'll be running 12-minute frequencies on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 6 to 9 a.m. and to 3 to 6 p.m. And that is where the ridership demand is, and that is where we're first putting those trains. You'll see on February 21st, that would be the same, right? So the new frequency for the foreseeable for on, again, blue plus, which is kind of mimicking the yellow line, plus orange, 12 minutes. On the red, on February 21st, we are currently doing 8 minutes on the peak, and the goal here is on February 21st, we will go to 8 minutes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 minutes, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So significant frequency improvement on the red line on February 21st to capture a lot more ridership and to manage crowding. One thing that's really important on what we would call, and we're trying to really kind of work on better communications around this, but I would say, for lack of better at the moment, the Central Subway, which is Roslyn to Stadium Armory, where our 3 lines converge. That is a very important element of our whole system. And starting with the February 7th change, customers should expect a train every 3.5 minutes, approximately every 3.5 minutes. That is a big deal because it impacts so many people that transfer in the system as well. So people in the red and green also benefit from the increased frequency between Roslyn and Stadium Armory. So overall, more people will get benefits from this as well. Not on this slide, but really important, also starting on February 7th, we are implementing all Orange Line trains will become 8-car train sets. So getting past having 6s and 8s, so much more capacity as well. And then all lines will experience an increase in 8-car train sets. So we can't commit right at this moment to which line would have, if it's 10 trains versus 12 trains. But the Orange Line, all trains will be 8-car train sets, and all other lines will slowly but surely get even more 8-car train sets than they have today. So that is where we are for service. The big part of service I want to continue to highlight is it's a combination of trains, availability, and staff. And we are working both fronts with a really high sense of urgency and a commitment to deliver a safe, frequent service. So we've done an enormous amount of hiring, a lot of training, and a lot of work with our partners at ATU and others to get to a spot where we're have more people available that are certified and fully trained to run our service. But we also, through our 7000 series return to service plan, have now more trains available. So as both of those things increase, we look forward to coming back to the board and communicating additional frequency changes as well. So we've said from the start, crawl, walk, run. So I hope the customers will see that these are tangible and real increases that will make their lives better. But I want to also really commit, the job is not done. We are 100% committed to get back to full budgeted service and run this network the way it was designed and the way the community not only expects, but the community needs to fully recover from COVID, and we are committed to that. So sometimes people will say, oh, they're not running trains because they're saving money, they're not running trains for this reason. All those reasons are not factual. We are trying to staff up and get our vehicles to a state where we can run the full service that this board approved in a budget. So that is today's update, Chair. Happy to take any questions, thoughts. And again, I thank the board for your support, your commitment, and it goes a long way for the staff to see the board unified and working well together, trying to advance this mission. So with that, Chair, I take any questions or comments or thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, and I think I can say on behalf of the board that we really appreciate the progress that you and your senior team and others, all the staff, have made over the past 6 months in helping transform Metro. Any questions for Mr. Clark? No. Okay. That being said, we'll now move on. That's the end of this meeting, and we'll move on to the report by the Finance Committee. Mr. Letourneau.
Okay, the following item was referred to the board from the January 9th Finance and Capital Committee meeting, which is item A, authorization for public hearings on the FY24 operating capital budgets and the FY24 to 29 capital improvement program. So as a reminder, staff sought authorization to conduct public hearings on Metro's proposed FY24 operating capital budgets and the 24 to 29 capital improvement program. Those hearings and associated outreach will solicit input on proposed changes to Metrorail fares and Metrorail and Metrobus service included in the budget. And I will note, just for the public and for board members, as happens with these hearings, the board can still consider a range of options to make changes up to the maximum amounts that are authorized in this public hearing docket. So for instance, take the max fare discussion, for instance, where advertising $6.50, the board would have the option to go down but not up on that. And the same is true for the other fares. So just so the public understands, they still can provide input on those things that we can take into consideration with work sessions that we'll have coming up shortly. I will be making an amendment to this as soon as I make the motion, just to correct a technical mistake that was made last time. So I will move approval of this item.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion on the table by Mr. Letourneau. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will move to amend the resolution as follows, which is 1, Attachment C, Item 1, under proposed Metrorail service changes is amended and restated as follows. 1, improve Green Line frequency. Improve Green Line headways to 6 minutes all day until 9:30 p.m., improved from 10 minutes during peak hours and 12 minutes during off-peak hours. Late night service would operate every 10 minutes, improved from 15 minutes. 2, Attachment C, Item 2, under proposed Metrorail service changes is amended and restated as follows. 2, improve Yellow Line frequency and new service pattern. Improve Yellow Line headways to 6 minutes all day until 9:30 p.m., improved from 10 minutes during peak hours and 12 minutes during off-peak hours. Late night service would operate every 10 minutes, improved from 15 minutes. All Yellow Line trains would operate between Huntington and Mount Vernon Square Station instead of operating to Greenbelt. And 3, Attachment C, Item 3, under proposed Metrorail service changes is amended and restated as follows. 3, improve Orange Line frequency, improve Orange Line peak headways to an average of every 7.5 minutes, improved from 10 minutes. Increased off-peak headways to every 10 minutes, improved from 12 minutes. Late night service will continue to operate every 15 minutes. That's the conclusion of those amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Letourneau. We have an amendment with 3 attachments on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Klein. Any discussion? All right, hearing none.
Is the discussion on the amendment or on the main?
Yes, on the amendment.
Yep. Okay, hearing none. Ms. Ellison, please administer the vote on the amendment.
Chair Smedberg? Vice Chair Babers? Aye. Mr. Goldman? Aye. Ms. Klein? Aye. Mr. Letourneau?
Aye.
Dr. Lowe? Aye. Mr. Drummer?
Aye.
Ms. Martin Proctor?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the amendment passes.
Thank you. Are there any other further amendments on the floor? No? Now we'll vote on the main motion as amended. Any questions or comments on the main motion? Mr. Goldman.
Thank you very much. Let me just preface my statement by saying that the views that I am expressing today are mine as the Montgomery County alternate sitting in today for the Maryland DOT Secretary. I am not speaking for Governor Moore or acting MDOT Secretary Wiedefeld. That has a familiar ring to it. They will develop the state's position on the FY24 budget and the fare increases that are part of it in due course. I do support going to public hearing. with the proposed budget, but I want to raise some concerns with the max fare increase going from $6 to $6.50. This has two pernicious impacts. For those now paying $6, it's a 50% fare increases when others under the GM proposals get a fare reduction. It also conflicts with Maryland's and the regional goals to shift commuters from cars and interstate driving to public transit and to reduce fossil fuel use, as the fare hike is a disincentive to using Metrorail. For those off-peak long-haul riders, the impact is worse. They go from paying $3.85 to paying $6.50, a 69% fare increase for a typical Shady Grove to Metro Center rider, as an example. There may be hundreds of O&D itineraries impacted in Virginia, as well as in Montgomery County and Prince George's counties in Maryland. One Virginia O&D cited in the staff report is Vienna to Smithsonian, which would also have a 69% increase. But the same would be true for, say, a Loudoun County to a Metro Center customer now paying $3.85 off-peak, who would also, he or she, would be paying $6.50. One solution I hope we can consider during the public hearings and further board deliberation after the public hearings is a cap on the fare increase for all of these O&D trips that come during the off-peak period, so that it's no more than a 10% increase off the current off-peak rail fare for these journeys. Yes, it would be a fare increase, but a modest one, and not the 69 or 31 or 25% increase for such trips shown in the staff summary of fare impacts that was distributed to board members. The board can make these adjustments because, as Mr. Letourneau pointed out, the budget proposal would allow fare increases up to the levels proposed, but smaller increases are not barred and may be implemented through board action. So let's go to hearing, let's hear from the public, and then vote as a board to fix these inequities and excessive fare increases in the GM's proposed budget before we finalize the budget for the start date, July 1st, for the new FY24 fiscal year. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a really quick comment, which is, as folks have heard, I've had a lot of questions about the budget over the past couple of months as we've been discussing it. Staff has been incredibly responsive to those questions, particularly in the last 2 weeks with a lot of data and stuff answering a lot of questions, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. So that took a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. It's great to have additional information, and the reason this budget is generating so many questions is that this is different. This includes some new ideas on fares, on service, all sorts of things, and I really think, speaking for myself, that was something that I had hoped to see when Randy joined as the new general manager, bringing us some new ideas and thinking how we can do things differently. So I think it's absolutely time to go out for public comment. These discussions will continue, obviously, but I just wanted to thank everyone for the work that's gone into it thus far.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Mr. Letourneau.
Yeah, thank you. Just brief comments. I wanted to also thank staff for all the work that's gone into this proposal so far. I think we've had a very good, transparent conversation about what the intent is. And it's really to sort of recalibrate our fare system, update it, modernize it, look at how people are using the system and how we can best meet their needs in the future. I think, obviously, Mr. Goldman raised some concerns about some of the specific scenarios that affect small numbers of riders, something like 3%. And I think it's very legitimate for us to take a look at those and figure out if there's a way through some of the things that have been proposed to make some adjustments and help smooth that out a little bit, whether that's on the distance, mileage number, the max fare, or something like one of those levers. So we will continue that work. That's really the purpose of the work sessions that we have on the budget. But I think overall, what we're going out with the public brings them more service, increased frequencies, some pretty smart ways to do that, as well as some efficiencies in the system. I do want to note, because we don't talk about it a lot, that there's some steps internally that Metro has taken that is being proposed in this budget to reduce headcount and to look at some vacancy savings and things like that, positions that have been open that will no longer be budgeted, things like that, to help really address what we know is a fiscal challenge for us in the future. And it shouldn't be lost that those things have been brought forward in this budget and will be something that the public will be able to see and comment on as well. So I want to thank everybody for that work and looking forward to having more discussions as we finalize this proposal.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Letourneau. All right, seeing no other hands, we'll go ahead and vote on the main motion. Ms. Ellison, please administer the vote.
Chair Smedberg? Vice Chair Babers?
Aye.
Mr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Klein?
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau?
Aye.
Dr. Lowe?
Aye.
Mr. Drummer?
Aye.
Ms. Martin Proctor?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Letourneau and the Finance Committee. Next, we'll move to the two consent items on today's calendar. First is implementation of reforms to the Office of the Inspector General, approval of a resolution to implement changes to the Office of Inspector General's procurement, human resources policies, and procedures in order to comply with requirements of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021. And second, indirect cost rate adjustment. Staff seeks approval to amend the indirect rates for the fiscal year 23 to reflect the rate set approved by the Federal Transit Administration in August 2022. This change will have no impact on the approved jurisdictional operating subsidy and/or capital contributions. I'd like to move approval of both of those. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Goldman. Before we vote, I'd like to thank the IG's office, finance, HR, procurement offices for working collaboratively on the agreement that was first mentioned. Ms. Ellison, please administer the vote.
Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair Babers?
Aye.
Mr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Klein?
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau?
Aye.
Dr. Lowe?
Aye.
Mr. Drummer?
Aye.
Ms. Martin Proctor?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the reports by the jurisdictions. Virginia and VTC, I'd just like to say that myself and Mr. Letourneau and the GM were down in Richmond on Monday and Tuesday along with Regina and Greg Potts, and had meetings with the Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Miller, the House Transportation Chairman, Mr. Austin, the Speaker of the House, the two people in the Senate, Mr. Marsden, Mr. Barker. Mr. Barker is now co-chair of the Senate Finance Committee, and other representatives. We also met with the Northern Virginia Caucus, gave an update, Randy gave an update during that meeting. So I think the meetings were very productive overall. Got to introduce the GM to those folks and gave them an update, much unlike many of you have heard about the past 6 months and the things that WMATA is doing to reform and reimagine itself and better serve our customers, and laying the groundwork for the more substantive strategic discussions are going to have to take place financially, in the next year and a half or so. So, Matt, you want to
yeah, and I appreciate those meetings we had. We also met with Mr. Scott, the minority leader. I also just want to mention, really, for all of you might be interested as well, that the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission is in the process of completing a report about the contributions of Metro to Virginia's economy. We did this several years ago when there was a discussion about dedicated capital funding. That report is being updated, and really it looks at the whole economy and what Metro brings from an economic development perspective, a tax revenue, income tax, all those sorts of things that come into play. And that's kind of in concert with the discussions that we need to have to help our legislature understand, especially those members who are not from Northern Virginia, the value of Metro and why it is worth the Commonwealth's continued investment. So we're looking forward to seeing that report, certainly make it available to everybody here.
Yep. And thanks to Regina and Greg for organizing those meetings. District of Columbia, Deputy Mayor Babers.
I don't have anything. Tracy?
Only thing I can think of is there may be a need to reschedule the date for the council oversight hearing on WMATA, but there's no new date yet, so maybe we stick with the old date. It may need to be postponed.
That's, I think, February 2nd.
It's currently scheduled for February 2nd, but I think we may need to move that.
Okay. Mr. Goldman, WSTC.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All these
I
acronyms.
bring you greetings from newly elected Governor Westmore, Maryland, and newly appointed Acting Secretary Wiedefeld, Secretary of Transportation. You'll find, I think, that this administration will be more transit-friendly than prior administrations, and that should portend for a very good relationship between the state and WMATA. I would also like to make the public aware that on Monday, January 30th, there will be a meeting of the Montgomery County Council Transportation and Environment Committee, where they will have a presentation by Metro staff on the FY24 budget, and the council members will consider some questions and what their response would be in terms of the budget. So I bring that to the attention of public at large and media if they want to attend that meeting. It'll be Monday morning at the council chambers in Rockville, Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman.
Like Mr. Drummer has.
Oh, Mr. Drummer.
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Federal government, Ms. Klein.
Yeah, thanks. First, I just wanted to make everyone aware of a new resource that the U.S. Department of Transportation has put onto their website, which is to remind everyone that all those grant opportunities that launched last year from the bipartisan infrastructure law are happening again this year because they are annual programs. So there was a lot of excitement when the bill passed about all these competitive grant opportunities. I know we've encouraged WMATA to coordinate with others in the region to make sure that we maximize the opportunity that law presents. The resource on the U.S. Department of Transportation's website is a calendar of expected notices of funding opportunity coming this year. The RAISE grants, multimodal competitive grants, are already open. There are other opportunities coming, including more funding for bus and bus facilities, including low emission and no emission vehicles. There's also charging infrastructure grants, resilience grants, a variety of opportunities coming just in the next few months. USDOT wanted to make sure that people have a little bit of predictability in terms of when these are coming, because not knowing that makes it really hard to plan capacity for doing these applications, which is a certain amount of work in and of themselves. So that is available, and hopefully we can maximize that opportunity. Ms. Martin Proctor, did you want to add?
Oh, thank you so much, Director Klein. Just very briefly, we just want to highlight that February 4th is Transit Equity Day. This is in recognition of Rosa Parks standing up for equity for all people who use public transportation in honor of her birthday. There will be a activity taking place at Anacostia Community Museum. Please take the Metro, get there, having a good time on that day. They will have speakers, interactive activities, helping to teach youth and individuals in the community about how to be an activist and to raise the issues of transit equity throughout the community and all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate those updates. Now, with no further business to come before the board, we will stand adjourned, and I'll turn the floor over to Don Drummer, Chair of our Safety and Operations Committee. Mr. Drummer.
Thank you, Mr. Smedberg. Good morning again, and welcome to today's Safety and Operations Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Now to approval of the minutes of our December 8th meeting. Are there any objections by members of the committee? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. So this morning we have 4 information presentations on today's agenda. The first is an update on Team Metro's Safety Management System, or SMS, implementation, complemented by plans for calendar year 2023. The second is an update on safety critical employee recertifications and required training. The third is an overview of our capital program initiatives and plans for summer of 2023 that will impact rail service and customer planning. And the final presentation is an update on our Metropolitan Transit Police Department's public safety initiatives. At this time, I'll ask Ms. Impastato to begin our first presentation.
Thank you, sir. This presentation will review the progress that's been made throughout calendar year 2022, as well as laying out the plan for continued implementation of Metro Safety Management System throughout calendar year 2023 and beyond. Metro recognizes that a safety management system and implementing it in a meaningful, data-driven manner takes time and significant resources. Our strategy has been to establish a foundation with the Rail Operations Control Center, stand up practices, evaluate those practices, and stress test our processes, and then expand those processes based upon the lessons learned and experience in the Control Center throughout Metro. We've established and fine-tuned a multi-year strategic roadmap for enterprise-wide implementation of the SMS and to apply a project management approach to each milestone. In January of 2022, we debuted the roadmap depicted in this slide, which established an ambitious portfolio of projects to support the implementation of the SMS and laid out notional expectations for future years that were intended to be refined as we move forward. The remainder of this presentation will review each of these pillars in detail. Over 2022, we completed significant policy development and deployment activities. We made progress developing a framework for evaluating technologies and have laid out the pilot case of this process with our wayside wheel inspection systems that we are now installing and commissioning. This year, we'll continue the efforts with regard to technology and will add new milestones to further embed the safety management system as a way of doing business at Metro. We'll do this by partnering with a number of departments throughout the agency to align our policies and procedures with just culture principles, as well as embedding safety values and behaviors into our job descriptions and performance management process, and continuing our partnership with the information technology team to prepare our systems to support the robust data analytical capabilities required in a mature and functioning SMS. Over 2022, we completed several safety risk management milestones that improved our safety certification process. We established a relationship with FEMA to assess opportunities to increase system resilience in the event of severe weather and other potential disruptions. Of note, this is the first such relationship that's been established with a transit agency and FEMA. We've also implemented additional safety risk management processes throughout operations, including launching the effort with our rail transportation team and reaching out to our frontline employees that perform daily work and are exposed to risks and hazards so that they can best inform the identification of those risks and hazards and how to best mitigate them. As we've talked throughout the year last year, we launched revised processes for roadway worker protection and introduced new documentation for employees to guide their work practices. This year, we'll continue to implement our safety risk management process while implementing revised workplace safety programs and developing an enhanced process for ongoing oversight and coaching of staff that perform safety critical work. Throughout 2022, with regard to safety assurance, we matured the processes that we laid out in 2021. We've established a framework for incident management and have begun deploying the training throughout Metro. We've developed the safety department's operations safety oversight processes, including inspections, tracking, and integrated efforts with our partners in operations to assure ongoing oversight of critical safety tasks. We've expanded our investigations team capacity to include incidents that occur in the bus and metro access realm and have established parity of practices with regard to hazard risk management across all modes. And we've also begun the implementation of an improvement plan relative to our voluntary safety reporting programs. In 2023, we're going to continue to expand our investigatory capacity and incorporate just culture principles into our investigations, as well as partnering with our quality assurance peers as part of the strategic transformation plan to incorporate and align data from our safety management system with our quality management system to launch an integrated management system. And we're also going to launch an integrated inspection system so that we can track to closure any concerns or issues that have been identified in conditions or state of good repair. With regard to safety promotion, in 2022, we proudly partnered with MITRE to conduct a safety culture assessment, the details of which and results of which I'll speak to in just a few moments. In addition to developing a communications training and engagement strategy that has a multi-year impact relative to improving our opportunities to perform outreach. We've also started developing training and introduction relative to just culture principles and implementation. Throughout 2023, we'll be adding milestones relative to rolling out SMS training for all employees in management and expanding and advancing the interactive dashboards that I demoed throughout 2022. This slide depicts the calendar year 2023 roadmap, and we've expanded the efforts for the outlined 2 years to reflect the progress that we've made and the changing environment within which we operate. I will provide an update to the board at the mid-year of our progress against milestones. Each of the milestones that appears in the calendar year 2023 swath all have a tactical action plan that will be project managed by an SMS project manager with milestone owners to assure success in continued progress and completion of key activities in order to continue to support the SMS. Of note in calendar year 2023, our activities are beginning to reach an inflection point where in 2021 and 2022, we really worked to build a solid foundation for the implementation. In 2023 now, we're starting to stress test that foundation by really adding a more robust implementation and working to establish strategic partnerships throughout the Metro organization that will supercharge the results of our strategic transformation plan. As we continue to progress through 2023, we will look towards 2024 and 2025 and start refining and expanding those roadmap, tactical, and critical action plan milestones as well. At this point in the presentation, I'd like to discuss in detail the results of Metro's safety culture assessment. By way of background, in calendar year 2022, we partnered with MITRE, an independent government contractor who performs research and development centers and has supported the implementation of safety management systems through a number of peer industries. In 2022, we conducted an assessment of Metro safety culture. It was multifaceted and performed surveys as well as focus groups and deep dive interviews. That assessment concluded in October, and we met last month as a senior team to develop objectives and initiatives as part of our strategic transformation plan process that will address the results of the safety culture assessment. With regard to Metro safety culture assessment results, the areas for improvement that were identified are relatively common for organizations of comparable size and complexity as Metro. Concerns emerged with appreciation for positive behaviors, fair treatment, as well as open and collaborative opportunities for employees to express concerns or report incidents. Based upon what we've seen in other organizations that have implemented SMS, this is not uncommon in terms of identifying areas for improvement. One positive outlier that emerged in the assessment was the strength of Metro's communications processes. Many organizations that are implementing SMS don't have as robust a communications process as Metro, and we're proud to anchor our improvement efforts on this significant strength. Of note, the survey results aligned with our strategic transformation plan survey results in that middle and senior management presented a seemingly paradoxical result with their views relative to commitment to safety. In the assessment process, we partnered with MITRE and performed further qualitative analysis through focus groups and parsed out that was reflective of a sentiment of a lack of empowerment to follow through on actions that demonstrate a commitment to safety, which comports with and is a key part of the strategic transformation plan and our safety culture improvement efforts. Most notably, in responding to the safety culture assessment, we are going to revise our policies to align with a just culture. I've spoken in prior board presentations around all of the specific dimensions of safety culture, with just culture really being one of the keystones of building an effective safety culture. Just culture is not a panacea, but it is a core component of advancing any dimension of an effective safety culture. And essentially, just culture is a decision path that's looking at the choices that are made within the environment and system that employees are presented with to make that choice. A just culture approach recognizes intent in employee decision-making, and it really encourages employees to be more communicative and disclosive in unintended outcomes, and really seeks to decriminalize human error in the work environment. Just Culture has had some notable successes in a number of industries, including aviation, nuclear, healthcare, and the energy industry. So at Metro, you'll be hearing us refer to our just cultural efforts in greater detail over time. This is one of the key focal areas of our Joint Labor Management Safety Committee, and I look forward to presenting the board with additional updates as to the progress of our implementation and alignment with just culture throughout calendar year 2022. That concludes my presentation to the board on the 2023 roadmap or performance in 2022 and our safety culture assessment. With that, I'm happy to address any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Teresa. I just want to point out, you mentioned that SMS implementation is ambitious. And I would say it's ambitious indeed. And I want to express personal appreciation for the hard work of the entire team on moving forward and making progress. The structured approach is an example of great teamwork, of great staff integration, a proactive problem identification and issue problem solving and identification of issues and problems, and pivoting where necessary, not thinking that we have the answer all the time. So thank you for that work. And at this time, I'll open the floor to committee members for comments or questions. Dr. Lowe.
Just one comment and one question. First, thank you for this presentation. I think that over the years, just the average person has become very aware that there's a problem at WMATA, and the solution is that we need to build a culture of safety. But it feels like we spend a lot of time saying we need to do that, but have struggled to demonstrate what are the specific steps we're taking to do that, how do we know that we're making progress, et cetera. What is so impressive about this presentation is that it shows in that sunshine matrix thing is incredible. Exactly what we're doing to build a culture of safety, how all the pieces fit together, and then we're measuring to see if we're making progress. There are two things that really stood out to me in the presentation. The first is how ambitious what you're talking about getting done in calendar year 2023 is. It's just a lot. So, and I thank you for being really ambitious about important things that need to happen. How you are getting all of this done with everything else that's going on at WMATA is just, your sustainability is important to this organization, the sustainability of your team. I hope this is realistic and that we can get all of this done. Because it looks really ambitious to me, especially relative to last calendar year. My one question is about this finding in the safety assessment about leadership at different levels, not necessarily feeling empowered to follow up on safety. What do we have in our concrete plans for what we're going to do this calendar year in the future that's going to move the needle on that as kind of the most obvious thing that when you look at the safety assessment, that's the thing that's not like the others?
Absolutely. So thank you very much for recognizing all the hard work of the team. Relative to the ambitious nature, we're not content to sit and stay at the same pace of implementation. And we had long discussions within the safety team as well as within the infrastructure and operations teams to assess the realistic feasibility of implementing all of these activities. And the safety team is not working in a silo. We're working with the full force and support of Mr. Dwyer and Mr. Off to really share the load. So we believe that while ambitious, this is an achievable layout for calendar year 2023. We're very careful as we progress through the milestones to track progress to goal and shift resources where needed or to defer certain activities. So you'll see in prior years, including last year, there was one item or two items that weren't fully completed, and we've rolled them in to the following year and have made demonstrable progress moving forward. So I'm proud and confident that we'll be able to continue to aggressively implement the SMS. With regard to addressing the concern about empowerment, the Strategic Transformation Program and the associated realignment between the infrastructure, operations, and safety and readiness teams will, through a structural capacity, really start addressing the perceptions of empowerment amongst our middle to senior management. By creating a structure where there's obvious escalation paths and more clear accountability, spans of control, and lines of authority, we're going to better highlight any concerns or gaps around empowerment. And I would say from a communications perspective, there's already been marked progress made with the senior management team in terms of working together, increasing collaboration, and beginning to gain efficiencies and synergies. The shared activities in 2023 will only further support that.
And is that the kind of thing that you feel like 1, 2, 3, when are we going to start to feel like we're seeing real progress on that?
So I think we've already noted some substantial and remarkable progress and efforts in working together more seamlessly. I think the return of the 7000 series is demonstrative of the enhanced communications that we have. During calendar year 2023, we are also going to conduct some additional focus groups in preparation for a 2024 survey. So in 2023, we're going to do some temperature taking, make sure that we're making the progress that we want to make, and we'll continue to monitor that in preparation for the full survey in 2024 that will really tell us the quantitative gains that we've made with regard to all the dimensions of safety and issues raised in the survey in 22.
Okay, thanks so much.
In our dialogue, we discussed the fact that leadership counts and leadership at successive levels. It appears that the survey indicated that there was strength and confidence at the lower levels. In other words, the closer you are to your supervisor or your leader, the more confidence you have in their commitment to where we're going. Can you talk about steps that we're taking in the future to get leaders ready all the way up the chain?
Absolutely. As part of building out our technical training and development organization, as part of the larger realignment in the Strategic Transformation Program, we're focusing on not just training to competency and proficiency on a technical skill, but also developing the leadership acumen, the mentoring skills that are required for leaders to effectively support a just, flexible, informed, and learning culture. So we're really working to develop curriculums as well as to increase the exposure and interplay between all levels of the organization. We were very fortunate that we had such a robust data sample in this survey that we were able to stratify it and really dig in and identify specific pockets of excellence that will serve as our standards and benchmarking for developing good relationships in terms of promotion of leadership ability and developmental opportunities for staff. So we're working to mirror them in areas of the organization that may not be as strong.
Thank you. Mr. Smedberg?
Can I just make a quick comment on that, Chair? Thank you. Two things I just wanted to highlight there. One would be the term is used a lot, and quite frankly, it's used a lot by some people that don't have a lot of expertise on safety, but this concept of safety culture. There is, I just want to, it's really important that we all, I think this board is very in tune to this, but publicly, there is no end game. There is no point. So we have, and I would argue, a really strong commitment to safety as this organization. This is a safe organization. So when someone says we don't have a safety culture, we need to be really honest and say that is not accurate. Safety culture is based on continuous improvement and just culture, so we never stop reaching to be better. We have an enormous amount, thousands of employees every day that do safe work and care about what they're doing and doing the right thing. That doesn't mean from time to time we don't have issues. The key on a safety culture organization is figuring out what those issues are, being honest and transparent with them, and then continually improve. So language, I think, is going to be really important for our organization to make this change, to go from we're trying to, someone says, Metro better hurry up and get a safety culture. That's not a thing. Safety culture is the DNA of an organization that never stops evolving. So I think that's really important. Number two, and I appreciate your comment, Board Member Lowe, about all the work, because what Teresa's up here speaking about, it is really organizational wide. There's a lot of components to it. It is really important. That's why this team is working so hard on our 7,000 series trains as an example. If this organization is spending an overabundance of time on one topic, it's very hard to look at safety holistically. So we have an enormous complex system, right? Everything we do is a systems approach. So there's only so many hours in a day for our senior staff, supervisor staff, training staff, on and on and on. So how we can get to a problem and solve that problem gives more capacity to build the entire SMS framework and culture improvements that we're trying to get to. So just trying to highlight that, right? There is only so many hours in a day, and what I'm really challenging the team on is to think holistically about safety, not just tactically about one particular thing. So that we have to be able to kind of chew down the walk at the same time. So I just want to kind of highlight that, because this team is working at basically almost an unsustainable rate right now, dealing with one or two specific topics. And we really, we got to get to that solution on 7,000 series. So we can get them back in a normal, safe maintenance practice on rail vehicles. And that's what the team is really working on.
Thank you, Randy. Mr. Smedberg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Teresa, you answered my first question. Good to hear that Mr. Dwyer, Mr. Orr, all three of you are in coordination with each other. Second, the slide with the survey from MITRE, the results. So are there industry norms? And if so, are these in line with comparable agencies or groups like ours?
So MITRE has maintained a database of their efforts to implement safety culture improvements throughout a couple different high reliability organizations in the healthcare industry, energy industries, aviation industries. Our results are not atypical of organizations that are at, the past the incipient, but not yet through kind of the intermediate phases of implementing an SMS. We align and comport with a number of the same types of responses and areas for improvement, as well as additional insights. In some ways, we were above the average with what MITRE's seen. We were particularly impressed with our strength with regard to communications. And that's something that we really need to leverage to enhance our opportunities to improve those specific dimensions where we can do better.
Well, given what we've seen, I think a lot of that's due to the efforts you've made in the last 7-8 months. So another question on this chart, or this slide. The last item there, leadership commitment, 24%. Does that set off an alarm for you?
It's something that when we started reviewing it, I found perplexing. For an organization that communicates as strongly as Metro does, for an organization that has clear leadership commitment to safety, what we found puzzling was a less favorable view relative to middle management's commitment to safety. And when we really started digging into that, because the results seem to be in conflict with themselves, establishing a peculiar dichotomy where folks feel comfortable raising concerns, they feel trust with their immediate supervisor, but then when they look in the mirror, they feel as if there's a challenge around the commitment to safety. And I think that's really reflective of the level of honesty with which our middle managers approach this survey. As we dug in through the focus groups, we found out that it was more so folks being excessively self-critical and noting they wanted to do more but didn't feel empowered to do it. And they felt that they weren't able to strongly demonstrate some of those commitments at the level at which they wanted.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. The external influence, what is that to you? What does that mean?
So with regard to the operating environment, I think a lot of the sentiments that were expressed in the safety culture survey showed gratitude for the support of jurisdictions that funded us and for the opportunities to partner with all 3 of the jurisdictions. There were some concerns expressed, and those came out in the areas for improvement relative to concerns about reporting safety concerns and issues. And that were an employee to make those types of reports, that there would be external pressures upon Metro's leadership team to take a more heavy-handed approach in response to those reports. So that is something that we have highlighted as an area for increased dialogue, both internally and externally, to work to really develop and implement our just culture.
So it could be a broad array of external influences.
Yes.
Okay. Or one strike, yeah. Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Babers.
Teresa, thanks again. Great presentation. And I continue to just love this SMS model that we rolled out last year and that you and your team are moving forward on. And I just wanted to make a statement that now that under Randy's reorganization, training rolls up under you as Chief Safety Officer, I am excited to see that 66% really just increase. And training, to me, training and safety also is going to impact several of those other components, including, I think, leadership commitment. So I look forward to whenever you do this survey again in 2023, I believe we're going to see significantly improved results. So thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll move to the next presentation.
All right. Apropos, this presentation will provide an update on Metro's training and certification of train operators as well as additional staff who perform safety-related duties. In May of 2022, when I last briefed the board relative to the recertification status of Metro safety critical employees, we reported significant gaps in terms of certifications. There were a number of departments that had significant numbers of employees who were past due on their recertification. I'm pleased to report by means of an update that closing out 2022, significant progress was made over the 7 months between May and December. All active personnel that operate trains, buses, and dispatch throughout the Metro system are fully certified. All recertification has been completed, and we have mapped out a sustainable process moving year over year for assured continuance of recertification. We've sought to preemptively recertify individuals early so that we can better space the timing and devotion of our resources moving forward. Additionally, I'd like to provide an update with regard to our student train operator status. As the board is aware, we were granted a stay of the January 13th directive, and we've met the requirements of the directive and have performed additional training for all effective employees. There is an evaluation of the practical training program that is currently underway, and until that's completed, Metro's operators will undergo training in accordance with the directive at the 8 and 30 hour ratio, 8 hours of yard practical time and 30 hours of time with a line platform instructor. I'd like to state that despite disagreement with the assertions of the directive and some subsequent statements that the change in training sequence presented an unacceptable safety risk, Metro made the decision to temporarily revert to the prior practice to limit the impact to our customers while we conduct this holistic evaluation of the training program for enhancements and efficiencies. And we remain committed to providing safe and reliable service for our customers. With regard to next steps, as part of our strategic transformation plan, the training and certification function has been centralized. And we do have a number of assessments underway in order to identify opportunities for improvements and enhancements, which include the development of a multimodal series of simulation programs. We've been working to deploy and increase the use of Metro's existing simulators, as well as designing a long-term effort to utilize new and emerging technologies to simulate the demands of the operating environment as a skills enhancement and experience enhancing exercise. We're also working to improve our content management system to ensure that all of the latest versions of curriculum are available and effectively controlled. We're enhancing our change management processes and performing reviews of on-the-job and classroom curriculum, as well as benchmarking both with numerous agencies in the transit industry, as well as numerous industries that perform proficient training for employees who perform safety critical functions. This concludes my update to the board, and I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Teresa, thanks again for this laydown. It's really an indicator of the systems approach in problem solving, and much appreciated and very inspiring, the work that's been done at the lowest levels. Are there any questions from committee members? Mr. Lowe?
I mean, I'll just say what Don said. The issue is addressed, but we also see the structural reform that will prevent similar issues from arising in the future. And those simulators totally rule, and we should figure out how to use them for something. They're just incredible.
Indeed, I look forward to briefing the board on our simulator program. I spent 2 days this week with the simulation team at our Carmen Turner facility, and we've got some amazing technology to leverage to enhance skills, and we're going to do our best to put that into play as soon as possible.
And if we need to get the board driving the simulators again in order to make sure, just to make sure that they're working, I think that we could do that.
Thank you. Mr. Goldman?
Thank you. Appreciate recognizing. Teresa, just the first slide in your presentation, the one showing the comparison between May 22nd and December 22nd, and you should be congratulated on the achievement that was done in that month period, going from less than 100% to 100% in all categories. But you've presented it as percentages, and I was just wondering if you have behind you the data in front of you as to how many train operators and bus operators that 100% signifies.
I do.
Oh, good.
So we have 510 active operators. Of the full complement of operators, there are 4 that are currently out of service, and they'll be recertified when they return. We have 108 rail supervisors, 43 interlocking operators, 90 terminal supervisors, 19 training instructors, 38 road mechanics, 45 rail traffic controllers, and 2,507 bus operators.
And I just wanted to follow up on the bus operators. Is that number of 2,507 for bus operators sufficient to operate the Metro bus schedule that's in the FY23 budget, or is there still a shortage of bus operators that the organization has to recruit and certify?
Yeah, Director, I'll address that. We have currently an operator shortage task force that is actually meeting this week. We've had the task force in place. I think the general manager has briefed the board on that previously. It's probably been in place for about 2.5 months. This week, we actually have a sprint going on where we've taken probably a really good cross-cut of the organization, about 30 people. And that's all they're doing for this week. And they'll report out to the general manager and the senior team tomorrow. We are short bus operators. We're short rail operators. We are, with Teresa's assistance on the training end and really Sherry's assistance and the organization getting behind it, we're doing everything we can to bring in more operators, train them adequately, make sure they're certified, make sure they're ready for service, working with 689 very closely on some strategies as well. But we are short, and we're doing the best we can to bring more operators in, but it will take some time.
And just to be specific, how many are we short?
On the rail side, on the bus side, I don't have an exact number. It's probably upwards of 100. And obviously, Director, part of the issue there is the idea that the way we currently have the paradigm set up, we pull many of our rail operators from bus operations.
Right.
So that's, go ahead, sir, pardon.
And once the 100 are brought online and employed, how long does it take them to be either certified or recertified to actually be out driving a bus in traffic?
The certification for our bus operators takes a number of weeks. It is customized and individualized and based upon a requirement for individuals to hold a commercial driver's license. So dependent upon how the individuals come to Metro, if they come with little to no experience, it's obviously a longer learning curve as we prepare them for the CDL test. If they come pre-licensed, they can have an expedited qualification process where they're familiarized with our equipment and demonstrate proficiency in operations, and that would shorten the duration for a number of weeks. But it is measured in weeks, not days, in terms of taking our operators for bus to certify them.
Just a final question. What is the bus operator turnover rate right now? So that, I mean, it'd be one thing if you just had to go out and hire 100 to add to the 2,507, but I assume that there's a turnover rate, and so the target is always a moving target, and it's more than just finding 100 new bus operators.
Yeah, it's refined all the time, Director. I would say generally the attrition rate is about 25 a month. And that's all inclusive, retirements, people who leave, people who are pulled up to rail, people who bid on other positions, but that's a moving number, but that's what we've been using generally.
Thank you, I appreciate that update.
Of course.
Thank you. Seeing no other question, no more questions, we'll transition to the Capital Delivery Program report. Thank you, Teresa.
Good afternoon, Chair Drummer and members of the board. Andy Off, Chief of Infrastructure. Thank you for the opportunity today to come before you to share with the public about our continued aggressive investments in our infrastructure. In this case, we'll be focusing on our plans for the summer of 2023. We'll be focusing on specific locations really to get after improving reliability of the rail system and to make a move towards advancing modernization. So the purpose of our 2023 work program is to continue our aggressive investment in our infrastructure under the pretense of 5 specific projects. The first being on the Eastern Orange Line, where we need to do some roof work, Minnesota, Deanwood, and Cheverly. followed by rail replacement on the western end of the Orange Line and a very small part of the Silver Line. Then moving back to the eastern part of the Green Line between Greenbelt and Fort Totten to focus on modernization efforts to install fiber. Then we'll be moving to our core transfer stations. We'll be focused on improving customer-facing signage in L'Enfant, Metro Center, and Gallery Place. And then finally, talking through improving our vertical transportation systems at the north entrance of DuPont. Just as way of background, not to harken back bad memories, but rather to reflect on the remarkable progress that has been made in improving the state of our infrastructure. Certainly in 2016, we entered SafeTrack, and that ran through late spring of 2017. And then later that summer, we had a large shutdown down at Branch Avenue. Then the following summer of 2018, we did some major work in between Fort Totten and Rhode Island Avenue. And then also did some significant single tracking in the core between McPherson and Smithsonian in August. And then, of course, in 2019, we started our 4-year platform improvement program. So certainly, due to the dedicated funding we've received, and the understanding, of the board and our customers, we have made significant progress. However, in the infrastructure business, resting on your laurels is not a good recipe for future success. So we want to continue our aggressive focus on, providing reliable infrastructure, as at the end of the day, it really underpins our ability to deliver safe and reliable service on a daily basis. So now I'll walk through each one of the 5 projects that I noted. The first on the Orange Line. We need to complete some roofing rehabilitation, and certainly quite obvious, we just came out of a major shutdown in this area. However, we were not able to safely complete roofing rehabilitation on half of those stations due to a conflict with overhead PEPCO lines. And certainly we all enjoy, air conditioning in the summer and heating in the winter. And because of that, PEPCO only allows shutdowns of these lines on the shoulder seasons. So unfortunately, we are going to have to get back in there. This is critical work. The picture that you're looking at here is actually Minnesota station, which does leak for sure. And so it is something we need to get after. We did look at many permutations of getting this work done safely, from overhead matting, different types of equipment, but at the end of the day, there was no safe solution. So this is really our only option. In terms of on-the-ground execution, this will be approximately a 10-day single-track operation. May 12th is a Friday. May 22nd is a Monday. On that Monday, the 22nd, we will return to normal service. So at the end of the day, this impacts 6, weekdays and 4 weekend days. So we certainly tried to, optimize the weekday, inconvenience. And I won't go through the details of this table, but we felt like it was appropriate, to be transparent and to share with the public and the board some of the thinking that goes through this. It's certainly a multi-variable calculus problem. I know folks had the opportunity to visit Northern yesterday. That is a tough project, but doing right-of-way work on an operating system, is truly next level. And we do try and manage all these variables: cost, speed, quality, impact to our customers, and the gains, in the advancement of our infrastructure. And this is some of the thinking we go through and why we believe that a single track for this operation is most appropriate. Next, looking at rail replacement, between Boston and McLean and Boston and Vienna. So generally speaking, it's approximately 10 miles from Boston to Vienna. That part of the system was put into operation in 1984. Over the years, we have replaced approximately 10 miles of rail out there. I do just want to share that in the industry, you don't replace rail because it's old. Replace it due to section loss, surface defects, internal defects. So that has been what we've done over the course of the past, almost 40 years now. During SafeTrack, we did do 3 surges in this area, where we replaced about 4.5 miles of rail. We've replaced about 5.5 outside of that event. So the focus of this job will be removing the remaining 30 miles of rail between Boston and Vienna. Now, what's unique about this rail, it's a specific manufacturer that was all installed as part of that extension from Boston to Vienna. What we've learned over the years is this rail chemically, is a very high alloy and has a propensity to break. Now, it is not necessarily a safety issue, as we do have broken rail protection, so it's not anything we feel like we need to get after today, but it definitely is a reliability issue that we have to be, aggressively focused on. In terms of execution, this will happen in 2 phases. The first phase, 23 days from the 3rd of June through the 26th of June, we would have a bus operation from Boston, serving as a temporary terminal, to Vienna, and then also a bus operation from Boston to McLean. So at McLean, it will be open. We do have the ability to turn trains there and service that station appropriately. Then after those 23 days, we will collapse this operation to include Dunlorin and Vienna, where West Falls Church will now become, the temporary terminal, where we will have a bus operation between West Falls Church and Vienna. We certainly worked very hard. Obviously, these projects can be sequenced chronologically in many different ways. What we tried to do here is make sure we protected, the 4th of July weekend the best we could. And we feel like that, this is the best viable option to provide good service for our customers over that important holiday period. Next, moving to the Green Line between Fort Totten and Greenbelt. Also, transparently, we did do a major shutdown there over the summer of 2021. However, as you can see in this picture, in order to install the fiber, both tracks need to be down. So our intent here is to install fiber the full length from Greenbelt to Fort Totten. During the shutdown of 2021, we retrofitted all of our high voltage electrical equipment along this line to enable a new technology we refer to as tagging relay. But that technology is not implementable until such time that we have a fiber ring to utilize it. What tagging relay does is it enables us to get out to the right of way earlier. So as opposed to sending folks there and pulling breakers out of cabinets, we can now safely do this remotely. So there's some huge advancements and benefits of implementing this project. Now, I think, when the system was built, it was all copper-based and analog. Clearly, that's not how we function today. So this is part of a system-wide effort, to construct a fiber ring throughout the system. In terms of the operation, it will be a 44-day shutdown from Greenbelt to Fort Totten. I think, we do have, some good experience, unfortunately to some degree. We do understand how to run a good operation here from a bus perspective. I did just want to cover one thing. I didn't go through the details of each alternatives analysis. But at the day, if we didn't do this work in a 44-day shutdown, it would take approximately, 6 months of every weekend shutdowns. Clearly, that doesn't work, for a host of reasons. But, the reality is you're probably going to get 1 or 2 a month. So when you're looking at this, what we're really saving is probably about 18 months of every other weekend shutdowns, which we think, will add, great benefits to the system in terms of enhancing our ability to get more work done overnight. So in the future, we can get away from doing these types of things. Next, I'll talk about some good news. Passenger information displays down in our core transfer stations. So we are going to replace all of them at our 3 core transfer stations. Interesting piece of information I learned yesterday. It's somewhat intuitive, but 42% of all of our trips, all of our customers, pass through one of these 3 stations on every trip. 60% of those are transfers and 40% of those are entries and exits. So by replacing the passenger information displays at these 3 core transfer stations, we're going to improve the quality of the trip for almost half of our riders. So what we'll be doing here, there's currently 23 of our passenger information displays at these 3 core transfer stations. We'll be replacing those and also adding some in a variety of locations to meet current ADA requirements, moving from 23 to 41. And I think, the comment we've gotten coming out of the platform shutdown is this is the thing. Folks notice the the most. It's certainly, very beneficial, and you can actually read it from, greater than 20 feet away from it. And last but not least, taking a look at our DuPont Circle vertical transportation project. Folks may be aware we did recently complete the north canopy, right? So now the elevators are covered at this location. We have been waiting to do this project until such time that infrastructure was present. So 45-year-old, they have been rehabilitated, not replaced, over the course of time. Very long, very unreliable. So there's like our right-of-way work, there are many different ways to do this work, but we felt like the best option, phase one, starting at the end of July, we would close the one elevator that is there and one escalator, so leaving the two other escalators, one up, one down. So the entrance would be open. Get those done. So at that point, we'd have a brand-new escalator and a brand-new elevator that would have twice the capacity that it had before in terms of speed. Then we would close the two remaining, tear those out, and replace those. So at that point, we'd have one brand-new escalator running up and the new elevator. So we felt like that was the best option for our customers. There's different ways to do this. We could just do one at a time, and then you end up, dragging out, the duration of the project. And I think folks who have seen these, they do cause havoc in the neighborhood. There's a lot of work that happens tonight. We're doing some of this work up at Tenleytown right now. So we are sensitive to trying to get this done as quickly as we can, but with the least amount of impact to our customers. The one thing I do want to note here is we are squarely focused on, and we do understand the importance of engaging the ADA community. Prior to closing this elevator, we have had challenges there in the past. So that is going to be, it is top of my mind, for this. We need to make sure we're out there understanding who uses these, right? Typically, there's some of the same folks, so we need to engage them well in advance and make sure we have a good accommodation for those customers. So just a comprehensive overview. If you start on the right-hand side and then move counterclockwise, just a single track, May 12th to the 22nd. Moving down and to the left, June 3rd through the 26th. The hardest part of this operation, changing rail between Boston and McLean, Boston and Vienna. Then collapsing the work zone using West Falls Church as the terminal, ending on July 17th. Then taking a week off and moving to the top of the page, 44-day shutdown operation between Greenbelt and Fort Totten for our fiber installation. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. When I was looking at it earlier today, no, my apologies. Yeah, I just do digital, I don't even know clock hands anymore. Okay, I did want to share, I think I referenced earlier, we certainly understand that this, continuous, summer work, is not sustainable for a lot of reasons. It certainly puts a lot of stress on the organization, particularly, on Brian's team, and we recognize that. But we also understand we need to, there's things we got to get done. So one thing we're going to be taking a really hard look at, which we wanted to share now, is taking a look at, generally in the holiday season, end of December, early January, to get our toughest work done. What we're looking at right now is a potential bus operation between DuPont in Union Station this coming winter, so roughly a year from now. So the details, still have a lot of work to do, but there's some significant structural work we need to get done at Farragut North, and then also some switch work. So just wanted to share this, that we are trying to take a different look for those who, have had the opportunity to get out and about during the holidays here, whether, on the streets or in the system, it clearly is, the least occupied. So next steps, as always, we'll begin our extensive coordination with those most affected, right? A lot of this we try and get, very, into the details with the specific DOTs and the customers at those locations to best understand what bus alternatives and other modes are most beneficial to support them. So we are commencing that. I actually have a call later this afternoon with Mr. Bashadny. Then we will deliver these detailed service plans approximately 90 days in advance. So we'll be starting the operation out on the Eastern Orange Line shortly. So we don't have much time for that, for sure. About a month's time, we need to be sharing, good detailed information with the community in the vicinity of Minnesota and Deanwood. And then our intent is to come back in the near future and start talking a little bit deeper, like we just talked about between DuPont and Union Station, some of our further plans as we continue to, ensure our infrastructure is in state of good repair for the decades to come. And that's all I have, pending any questions.
Andy, thank you very much for an excellent update, and also big kudos to your team for making capital delivery a strong suit for Team Metro, and you're continuing to do that. So I'll open the floor. Any members first? No questions? Others? Ms. Klein?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Drummer. Just a quick question. I think this is really a great presentation. It's so crystal clear where everything is and why the proposal is to do it this way. So first of all, thank you for that. Just a quick question. To what extent are these projects dependent on each other finishing at the time they're scheduled to? For example, if the first one takes an extra week or two, does that affect the schedule for all the others, or would they be expected to kick off at these times as well?
So from a work perspective, there is no dependency, but from a customer impact and our ability to deliver them simultaneously, there is an impact, there is sequence there. So we can't do two of these simultaneously for a host of reasons. So if one is delayed, certainly not in our playbook, but if that were to happen, we simply couldn't start the following operation. And for that reason, just so folks, that is why it's laid out the way it is. The rail work is the most critical and most important. So we felt like it was, to ensure that is done, most prudent to put that on the front end of the schedule.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No other comments or questions?
Can I make one?
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to make one quick comment. I know we want to move on to the next piece, but I want to compliment Andy and his team. So underneath Andy, there's two gentlemen, Rodolfo and Mitch. Mitch runs our, what we call ELIS, although I'm trying to blow up our acronym use here, but our elevator and escalator department. We have almost 1,000 pieces of vertical transportation, elevator and escalators. It is almost the most difficult job if there is a metro, because they are in one way dealing with 40-year-old equipment and then replacing it. And some of the sensitivities people see are, sometimes kids hit the emergency button on escalators and then people think the escalators aren't working. Or because of where the safety plate is, because of a sensitivity on code, that's how they work as modern escalators. I just want to give a lot of, a serious public kudos to our elevator and escalator team. They are 24/7 trying to keep up this system with, ultimately tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people using them on a daily basis. And some people compare that to like being in a mall. We are a totally different environment, obviously, and the team is doing a great job. And Andy, just in the last couple of weeks alone, we've opened many new escalators, and maybe you could just speak to that and a couple more that are about to, come in the recent period, because these are original equipment, and it is a big deal, not just for safety and reliability, but from accessibility and the ultimate customer experience. And it's one of these things that kind of is behind the scenes, and people it doesn't get the sex appeal of like yesterday's ribbon cutting, if you will, but they are like critical to our system functioning well. And I just wanted to compliment Andy and his team. And I don't know if Andy, you just want to mention where a couple of them are.
No, thank you, sir, and I certainly appreciate, Mitch and Rodolfo. They are 24/7. They do a super job working through these issues. And as a general manager just noted, we were fortunate to open the, north entrance of LaFont here, right across the road here. Beautiful new escalators there. We recently opened up the north entrance, of Silver Spring. We're making our way through Tenleytown. We did that in a different sequence, at any one given time. I don't know, myself and Mr. Clark were just meeting with the leadership from Union Station the other day, and of course the discussion there was When it could be done with these escalators here, right? So it's everywhere. It certainly is a big focus for us, but at any one given time, we're replacing or rehabilitating, a minimum of 15 to 20 pieces of vertical transportation in the system. Some get more attention than others, but it's a mission that'll never end for sure.
And I don't think it's totally invisible. I went to Rosslyn the other day and got off, and the escalators and the elevators were modern and they were so nice. I'm gonna love that for DuPont.
And also just to chime in, thank you so much for definitely including the ADA community. I know that we do continuous outreach to let people know when the elevators are not operational for our family that are living with mobility issues. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy, and press on in excellence. At this time, we'll move to the community policing and public safety update.
Good day, Mr. Chairman and Madam Vice Chairman and members of the board. Presentation today is to apprise you all of the recent efforts within the Operations Directorate to continue to enhance security for our customers and for our employees throughout our vast network, while we're also ensuring that we expand our efforts, as was talked about earlier, in assisting those among us in need of support services and continuing our excellent community service programs on behalf of Metro. More specifically, we'll break out our presentation today into themes. The first will be compassion. The chief will chat about with the committee an update on our deployment of crisis intervention specialists, which I believe we first mentioned in the October 25th Safety and Operating Committee briefing. We'll discuss our existing improvements to be made to our station vehicle camera systems. And finally, Chief will discuss our police deployments as well as potential partnerships we may be undertaking. Over to you, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. So the crisis intervention specialists, we've hired the 4. They're on board. They've received initial training and they're out in the field right now. So we've had over 200 contacts with folks that are suffering from either homelessness, opioid addiction or drug addiction, and mental health issues. So the crisis intervention specialists, their work is to connect with the local jurisdictions, departments of behavioral health, human services, and other nonprofit organizations to try to get these folks in the pipeline and get them some help. It's been fairly successful so far. We've been able to at least deploy, we've trained at least 283 of our officers on the use of Narcan, and we've deployed it out into the system. And so far, we've had 3 instances where we've had to use it, and luckily, the people came back around and we were able to, get them some help that they needed. One of the things we're also looking at doing is a community police academy. These are fairly common throughout the United States. What they do is they help foster a relationship between the community and police. Kind of go through like a mini police academy. It's about 8 weeks long, 2 hours to 2 to 3 hours, one night a week. Folks sign up for it, and then we talk about patrol operations, investigations, sort of the training that the officers go through. It just gives folks sort of an idea of what the officers go through and what they face, and it also helps us foster those community ties that we desperately want. Community events, the folks that got recognized here earlier, so we've had 500 people attend the 8 holiday decorated bus event for the kids. Over 200 children participated, raised $5,000 for Metro employees for the gifts and some of the necessities that the families needs. And we gave gifts to children and over 30 families this year. There were also over 200 people fed meals at Anacostia for Thanksgiving, and over 100 people fed, given the cold weather protection at Union Station during the end of the holiday year. Our Youth Advisory Council is growing. We host a monthly meeting to promote positive rapport between the officers and high school-aged children. Learning components provided by speakers focus on safety skills, global citizenships, and metro priorities. Our last event, we had 75 kids partake, which was a huge success. Generally, when we first started out, we only had about 10 to 15, so we've actually grown that quite a bit, which we're excited about. High visibility details are still implemented in support of the school arrival and dismissal. We partner with in DC with the Mayor's Office of Safe Passage and local school partnerships with some of the charter schools to get kids to transition safely to and from school. We do deploy daily to support schools by conducting safety presentations, supporting youth safe passage, as well as weekly school follow-up visits and mentoring programs. And what we try to do, some of the kids that we arrest, we try to work with the OAG's office in the district and go back out to the schools just to check on them and see how they're doing. And we continue to programmatic expansion, continuing this year is college and career readiness, mentoring, tutoring, arts, field trips, and childhood education. And we're getting now into sports and athletics. So we're hoping to field some athletic teams so we can compete with MPD's Boys and Girls Club. So that's what we're looking at. We've got some good athletes too.
The general manager is attempting to make Metro a video-centric agency. As I believe you probably all know, we have over 8,000 cameras within the system, stations and facilities. And what we're trying to do is, rather than using footage as we have traditionally, reactively, we're really trying to kind of engage proactively with both police staff and with operating staff. Chief has a crew of people who work in the Security Operations Control Center that will become part of the MEC. And that personnel now is panning camera angles throughout specific stations to look for unusual behavior. The virtual patrols have yielded numerous calls for public conduct violations whereby officers are able to respond and take appropriate action. Based on feedback that the general manager has received from bus operations staff to a visit to Silver Spring Busway when he first started, we're actually digging into different locations to try and ensure that we can not only get folks from a remote area or the control center or the SOC to be able to view those camera angles, but that the staff on hand can. And we've already addressed it there, and we're developing a program to really get that to staff in the field, because that's really a nature of empowerment, and if we want them to be there visible and reacting to the public, we need to give them the tools to do that. With regards to vehicles, we have 7K cameras. We're looking to upgrade that system greatly. I really don't have crystal clear timelines on a lot of this because it's something we're really charging through, and you all know Kimmy Feldbauer, the GM, felt that this initiative was so important that he's actually tasked her to be the program manager, working with a variety of internal staff and consultants. So the 7Ks we're upgrading, we're trying to take those upgrades and copy them onto the 6Ks. The 6Ks had a pilot program a number of years ago. Unfortunately, it fell dormant. So what we're really trying to do is the improvements we make to the 7Ks, we can mirror those on the 6Ks. And on the bus fleet, all of our buses now have internal cameras. We also have drive cam on all our buses, and that's a significant network. It's over 1,500 vehicles that we're talking about. We actually have an RFP on the street right now with vendors. We have about 4 in the queue. We're waiting to hear back. But I would say the main focus is not only improving the technology that's used and making sure it's more reliable, but I think our keen focus on rail and on bus is really to have the ability real time to look inside those vehicles and look around those vehicles. And I will say, it's not to spy on anybody. It's, I think many agencies that have the technology that we do use it a bit differently. And they make headway adjustments based on looking at that video. They verify what staff is telling them. So we're really excited about that opportunity. And again, I'll apologize in advance. I don't quite have the crystallized kind of time frame and numbers on that, but we'll certainly come back with another update soon to provide that. Back to you, Chief.
All right, sir. So for our visibility, obviously we've increased the number of Metro Transit police officers in the system by 30% on each shift. And that's primarily through overtime, the high visibility. Our fare enforcement out of the 4,800 interactions, 3% resulted in citations. So we're still trying to do a compliance program as opposed to an enforcement program. And it seems to be working pretty well so far. Solving crimes, our clearance rates, we do have some of the highest in the Mid-Atlantic region. That's usually what I base it off of for UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting. But nationally, our clearance rates are extremely high. Just as an example, unfortunately for our clearance rates, FBI transitioned to a new reporting system. So the only available statistics they still have online are for 2019. So they're trying to catch up. But if you look at aggravated assault nationally, it's about a 52% clearance rates. Ours is in year. It's not even UCR because we have to tabulate that. Ours is 64%. Rape is 32%. Ours is 67%. Robbery is 30%. Ours is 46%. Arson is 23%. Ours is 83%. Theft, we're about the national average, 18%, and they're 18%. And then auto theft, they're nationally 13%, and we're at 21%. Now, for us, that's a big deal because we're only counting the crimes that occurred in 2022, and those are the ones that are closed in 2022. So when we add in the UCR crimes, our rates are actually higher, but we're still tabulating that for last year.
That concludes our presentation. We're anxious to take any questions or any comments that the board might have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Brian and Chief. So I will share with you for the last 4 or 5 months, I've been very interested in where we stood when it came to law enforcement and engagement to respond to some of the dynamics in our communities and at our stations and on our buses. And today you told the story. We needed to hear it, and I thank you for that. You've told the story of surveillance, response, visibility, and community engagement, and it's powerful. So thank you for that. Continue to do that and continue to bring us up to date on this and bring the communities up to date on what is happening out there. So at this time, I'll ask, are there any questions or comments from committee members first? Ms. Martin Proctor.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation and thank you for the work that you're doing. Just 2 quick questions. The Youth Advisory Council meeting, you said meets monthly?
We do.
What dates are there and can we come?
I could have it wrong, but I think it's the third Wednesday of every month. But I'll have to make sure, because I get my dates confused sometimes, so. But it is, and we usually meet at 5 o'clock, and last one we did was here, and that's generally where we try to hold.
That's great, I would love to meet.
We can ensure to get you those dates, Director.
Yes, that'd be
No problem.
great. I would love to meet some of the youth that are actually putting input into the community. I think that their voices sometimes go unheard, and so I'm loving that we have that intersection. And definitely let me know when the athletes come out. I will be there.
We're looking for coaches.
I might have a few ends, but if you need cheerleaders and swim coaches and tennis coaches, then yes, count me in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Klein? Oh, Tracy, I didn't see you.
Yeah, I'm on this committee. Okay. Chief, first, thanks for the presentation. It is a little funny to me that you just sat there so calmly and were like, yeah, we solved all the crimes. We saved 3 people's lives with Narcan. I really appreciate that your vibe is low key, but the accomplishments are tremendous. I mean, these case closure rates are awesome. And thank you for sharing this publicly because it increases my confidence as a writer that if I need to call for help, that someone is going to come and they're going to help me. And that if something bad did happen, that someone's going to get in trouble for it. You know, I mean, I'm a mom, okay? So those are kind of my basic policies. And I feel a lot of confidence when I hear those kinds of numbers. Those are really great numbers. So thank you for being out there and doing the right thing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You've got really good detectives. So.
I mean, obviously, or these case closure rates would not be like this. So I do have some questions about the presentation, though. I'd like to hear more about how youth get involved in fair compliance activities. What is that?
that's a struggle for us, and we're trying to do it on a bunch of fronts. So the way we do our fare enforcement right now is, obviously, some of you have seen it, so you'll see a lot of police officers at the fare gates. And what we try to do is stay out front, funnel the kids through one section, and then let the, deal with the adults as they come through. So with the kids, what we're trying to do, and we have a meeting with the mayor's office coming up, is to try to get them, the schools, they're very involved, but try to get them more involved, particularly with the Kids Ride Free. So as we funnel the kids through and they don't have their cards, at least there'll be a school person there that will take their name. I mean, we're going to hold them up, but at least get their name, get them
signed up.
Exactly. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I mean, obviously exactly the right way to think about it. I understand that it's an enormous administrative burden to as someone who's running down one DCPS student's card all the time, it's hard to stay on top of it. But thank you for continuously not giving up on trying to get these kids their cards. Okay, in terms of the crisis intervention specialists, great to hear, hired and already out there. How are we identifying crisis intervention success other than number of contacts? I know we have just started doing this, but have we started to think about those metrics?
You can start, Chief. And then
Yeah, so as we've stood this up, the biggest piece of this initially was just getting folks into the pipeline, because not many, I won't say not many, but some are very reluctant to even, get in the pipeline. And for us, it's taken several contacts with folks to at least get them started in that direction. So
that's very typical.
So the back end of that is we have to, with the metric you're looking for, is one, if we encounter the person again in the system with the same type of issues, follow back up with the provider that we referred them to see kind of where the breakdown was. And then from there, work with the provider to see if we can't get that person, additional services or whatever. It's kind of odd in the region because not everybody has the same amount of services. Some areas we rely more on non-government organizations to help us out. Where in some areas they have a pretty robust Department of Behavioral Health to help us out.
So we're tracking contacts as individuals, and we're going to be able to know when we're making multiple contacts with the same person,
yes,
and to follow that person to bigger outcomes.
That's the goal, yeah.
Okay, that's exactly the right way to be thinking about it, so I'm glad to hear that we're already there. How will we know if 4 is the right number of crisis intervention specialists?
Good.
It's a great question, Director Lowe. We started out with that based on some discussions with SEPTA in Philadelphia, Cap Metro. Some of us had discussions out at the APTA conference with Vancouver, Seattle, some other entities that have this in place. So I believe that was the right number to start because we had to recruit them, we had to train them.
Starts anywhere.
Yeah, so I will say, Director, I don't know that we have a firm number as of yet. I would also say that we have all expected that that number will grow. And Director, quickly, I just want to go back to your question about metrics because Chief talked about some of those. I think, whether it's a hard metric or not, one thing we've been trying to do with the Chief's leadership, and you folks all have met Sheena Wilkinson and Leroy Jones, who run rail and bus operations for us, we're really trying to look, I hope it doesn't sound trite, but really look at kind of the operating entities in the field as kind of an enterprise system. So those folks are actually involved right now in meetings every month with the police department to go through crime data. There's a lot more interaction with the police about areas we have problems. I think we've talked about it to the board before, but the chief actually has his lieutenants out doing basically office hours with bus operators, checking in with them. And I say all that because I do think, having been a frontline person in transportation in another agency, some of that, and maybe we can turn it into a metric, will really be the feedback from the station managers, from the bus operators, from the rail supervisors about how we're doing. And I would say as well that, we are, Teresa articulates this far better than I do, but between all the staff we have here, we have some great custodial staff out there who work for Andy. We have Ellis staff. We have staff all over the place who really get engaged, and when they encounter something like that, they do the right thing. They call the control center. They grab a police officer
and there's more and more of them out there. So, great question about the metric. I'm not sure how we can spin it, but I would say we've really worked to try to make sure that that larger team has the right context, and it's not just that interpersonal, but it's more systemic than that.
So I do think that's the right way to think about it. I still believe there's a metric in there that we'll get to eventually.
Agreed.
And I think, you know, I feel good when you talk about it that way because, you know, everybody wants to feel that if they need help and there's someone they can call and someone will respond, and that includes our operators. Of course it does.
Yeah.
They're people.
Yes.
So that is really important. That's it for my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Klein?
Yeah, actually, that discussion answered my questions. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Ms. Babers?
Thank you all so much for that presentation. It was really, I love it. I personally feel very safe on the metro system, both the rail and the bus. And I would say that's simply because I realize we're in an urban environment. And quite frankly, I use my common sense when I'm outside the metro. Phone not sticking out my back pocket and my purse not all open. And so I would just encourage people who would say that they don't feel safe on metro, y'all use your common sense. But my question was really a comment and a question. First question, for that 30% increase in the number of officers that are more visible, were those new hires or were those existing officers that were somewhere else and now they're just on the bus and in rail stations?
That's a good question. So they're existing officers. So what we've done with the general manager and Mr. Dwyer, we've reallocated overtime to increase our presence on the rail and bus system during the morning and evening rush primarily. And they're in like 6-hour increments that the officers work. So they're in addition to what their normal patrol duties are.
Okay, great. Oh, Brian, were you going to add?
I would just quickly, Director Babers, I was going to say, in addition to that, we've actually looked at some of how those folks were hired on overtime previously. So for instance, we had it built into our capital programs that we always had the police hired on overtime. We've gotten away from that. The police get engaged when they need to. We also count on our jurisdictional partners, but those folks who may have taken overtime one place, we've kind of reincorporated that in. And I really want to stick on bus for a second because, again, with the chief and the command staff's leadership through discussions with people like Leroy and Jewel Bell and Greg Edwards, we've really focused on putting a bus team back together, and that's been redeployed. And I think it's been very, very well received by both customers and our employees.
Okay, great. And then my other comment for the chief. So for the crisis intervention individuals, if there's any help you need from me with DC behavioral health, we have a strong DBH. But if you all are having any issues making contact or whatever, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to help.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, Department of Behavioral Health has been a very good partner in this. They even volunteered and did help us out when we were selecting the 4 folks who sat on the hiring board. So that was very helpful. Yeah, it was very helpful.
Thank you. Mr. Letourneau?
Thank you. On the fare invasion piece, we focus a lot on rail because that's probably where we're losing more money. But when we looked at the bus fare evasion rates, which we can track pretty well because operators are able to note that the numbers were really staggering. So from an enforcement standpoint or from an education standpoint, how is that different for how you approach it? And are we also, I haven't heard or seen too much about what we're doing on the bus side. So can you give any kind of update on that?
I think I'd say, Director, that we did have bus operations involved when we kind of had the campaign to first roll fare enforcement back out. So there were a lot of the major busways that we had police and other operations staff at. Through the teams that we have on the buses, that's certainly something we're noting. But we have in the past had problems with operator assaults. So that's certainly been part of the equation there. Probably the next step for us is really to look into how we can roll that out a little better in bus.
I was going to ask, do we have any officers out on, I mean, there were particular bus routes that had massive raised? Or have we tried putting an officer on those routes during the time?
Yeah, I mean, so it sort of gets into another discussion, maybe that's more, in my take on it. So when you're looking at just strict fare enforcement, what I try to do is get the officers out on the bus routes where we're having violent crime. And that's sort of what we do. The next reiteration for our bus team that we recently put back together is really putting them in plain clothes. And fare enforcement will be a piece of it, but really what we're looking for is that disorder problem and the assaultive behavior on the bus lines. Recently, we were just on a W4 route that had some problems. We had a couple of shootings, which we closed, and a couple of stabbings. But, those are what I look at. And the shooting up in Northwest at 14th and Sheridan, we've been on that bus line as well. So that we tend to deploy them because I don't have as many as I'd like. I mean, I'd love to have more officers, but it's hard to get. But, we have to be strategic about it and deploy them. My preference is deploying where we're having violent crime.
Makes sense, yeah. And then on the crisis intervention, so I think in the winter, obviously, the homelessness issue really becomes very prevalent or obvious because it's cold outside. People are trying to get inside. It's early, but have we had any success sort of with intervening with individuals that have issues and actually helping them find other options?
Yeah, we have had success in that. I'd have to get you specific. So the intervention specialists are sort of our frontline employees that go out and connect them to other services. We don't have any services to offer, but we're sort of a conduit to get them into services. So it's sort of what we were talking about the last time. If we don't see them again, that's a success to us. I mean, something occurred when we got them some services where they're maybe in transitional housing or getting, a lot of people, I mean, you all know this, but, a lot of our calls and our involuntary committals are still way too high. They decreased from last year. We had 110 last year. We had 106 this year. So when you compare that to pre-pandemic, I mean, it's still up exponentially by over 40%. But a lot of it is, there are folks out here that don't take their medication. And when they go off the medication, that's when we find them in the bus or in the metro station. So getting them the services that they need, a lot of it's just a social worker to connect them, to get them frequently taking their medication. We don't see those folks again. So to me, that's a success.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And I have one closing question. A few board members have had the opportunity, and myself, to visit the Rail Operations Control Center, as well as the Security Operations Control Center. Can you help us understand how they're integrated?
I think presently, Mr. Chair, they have contact through issues that are going on. The police are very much involved in kind of incident management with the transportation staff and with the safe staff. I think what we're really focused on is when we are able to move the control centers to Eisenhower. And some of that, the security apparatus we have now will actually be incorporated there into the Metro Integrated Command and Control Center. Yeah. And I'm very sorry, Mr. Chair, just quickly, I did want to reemphasize, Chief really took the initiative through some discussions with myself and the general manager about pivoting some of that staff to be more proactive. We're going to continue to look at that, both for SOC staff, for some of the operating staff. We've already started to graduate that out, but I think that's going to be a keen focus when we move to Eisenhower.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you both for excellent presentations.
Of course. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
With no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned, and I'll turn the floor over to Chair Smedberg, who has a request for the board to meet in the executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer. In accordance with the bylaws, I, Paul Smedberg, request that the Board of Directors convene an executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections A, budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contracts, or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions or the federal government, and F, safety and security matters or premature release would compromise public safety. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Lowe. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today.